Welcome back, chess friends. In a previous video I took you through the oldest recorded game of modern chess. It was from Spain in 1475. But today I have a game that is twice as old. We're going back to Baghdad in the 920s, 1100 years ago. Now the rules were a bit different in those days. You could win by checkmate or by stalemate or by capturing all of the enemy pieces except for the king. The king, the knights and the rooks, they all moved as we are used to, except that there is no castling. There are no bishops and no queens because women hadn't been invented yet. Instead we have the elephants and the advisors. Now the elephants, they move by jumping 2 squares diagonally, like a weird bishop-knight combination. And the advisors, they move 1 square diagonally, like a very weak version of a bishop or a weak version of a king. In this position, this advisor cannot move because it's blocked in. I'm recording this without having filled in the picture frames over there, so I'll do that in the editing. I'm trusting my future self to find some historically accurate images to represent the 2 Arabic players, Al-Suli and Al-Lajlaj. I'll also put my source for this game in the description below. It's a very interesting site. So with all of that out of the way, let's begin the game. We have f3, f6, and moving your f-pawn is fine in these days because there's no fast-moving pieces to attack the kings. So f-pawn moves are fine. We have f4, f5, knight to f3, and then knight to f6. Now g3, g6. Now it's pretty clear that these games would have been much slower than modern chess, and the strategy of just copying the other players' moves would have been able to be used for a longer time in the game. So we have rook to g1, and sure enough, rook to g8, mirroring it. h3, h6, e3, e6. Now we have g4. Now here, Al-Lajlaj doesn't want Al-Suli to advance his pawn further because that's going to be annoying for him. So he captures. We have captures back, and we have g5. Now we have f captures and h captures, and we're back to a symmetric game again. Okay, we continue with d3, and Al-Suli is trying to build a strong center with his pawns. That's d6, we have e4 and e5, and now we have the first move with one of the elephants. We have elephant to e3 and elephant mirrored to e6, and Al-Suli captures this pawn. Maybe capturing with the elephant here would have been better, but he captures with the knight. And Al-Lajlaj plays king to e7. Maybe the elephant capturing the pawn here backed up by the knight would have been stronger, but he played the king move. We have c3 continuing to build up the pawns. Maybe knight to c3 could have been more active, but he played c3. We have knight captures g4, king to e2 and c6. And again, we're back to a fully symmetric board. Let's continue. d4 in the center and d5. And b3, b6, knight to d2, knight to d7, and here we have the first move of the advisor. Now the advisors, they both want to come to this empty square nearer to the center, so they both just walk there 1 square at a time. Now apparently this maneuver was so common that a couple of centuries later a rule was made that the advisors could just jump from the first square to the third rank here in 1 move. I guess like how castling became a 1 move thing eventually. We have knight on d to f3 because Al-Suli wants to push his c-pawn and he doesn't want to leave the d4 undefended, so the knight's now guarding it. Al-Lajlaj just mirrors him, and we have the remaining elephant getting developed to the h-file, again mirrored, and then into the f-file, again mirrored. Now Al-Suli brings his rook into the game, rook to c1, and here a nice active move for red might be rook to h8 on the open file here, but instead he plays a6. Now Al-Suli pushes c4 as planned, and in this position to deal with this, red should probably capture the pawn. Then after b captures, he can push c5, and then if the blue pawn is pushed to d5, he can retreat his elephant back to c8, and everything is in equilibrium, and the game would continue without advantage to either player really. But he did not capture that pawn. Instead he brought his rook on a over to c8, which is not as good. This allows Al-Suli to push c5, which threatens the advisor, and so Al-Lajlaj captures with the pawn. But now the game is completely winning for Al-Suli. he should here play d captures on e5, and this threatens the two pieces here. So red would capture with the knight, and then we have the elephant jumping in, capturing c5 with check. And now after the king moves, he can pick up the elephant for free, and he is completely winning. But he didn't play this combination. Instead of capturing the pawn first, he captures the pawn on c5 straight away with check, and this allows red to stay in the game. Red here should play the advisor captures, and then after captures here, we have knight captures, not this knight captures on e4, the advisor captures on e4, d captures e4, and the knight captures e4, and then this is attacking the advisor, which would move out of the way. And red's still in the game here, but he's got a small disadvantage, but he will be able to carry on and try to make something out of the rest of the game. However, instead of that, he played, instead of capturing the elephant here, he played king back to e8, which just gives up the elephant for free, this elephant. And so the game continues. The d pawn captures e5, knight captures e5, knight captures e6, this elephant for free. And now the rook captures on g1, the rook captures on g1, so rook exchange there. The knight captures f3, and the king captures on f3. Now, at this point, Al-Lajlaj seems to have resigned the game. Why did he resign? Well, he's a whole piece down now, having given up that elephant for free, and it seems inevitable that Al-Suli will be able to maintain his advantage. One continuation here might be the d pawn captures e4, advisor captures back, the elephant just comes to d2, and rook to g7, and it's all winning for blue. So that was very fun and interesting with the different moves from 1,100 years ago. Let me know what you thought, and I'll see you again next time.